Let me give an example. Someone says, and the person again is known to be a good person, is doing his salah, a righteous person, male or female. The person says, I had a dream. And the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do salat, to do sadaqah, to give zakah, to enjoy the good, to forbid the evil, stay away from the haram. So there is nothing new. We're not going to make a big issue out of this. Say, mashallah, it's a good reminder to all of us. Good. But if the person is saying something which is against the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah, we don't take it. Period. No matter who, no matter what, or no matter who the person happens to be. It's not just about blind following. Because someone might exploit people. Might exploit people. That I had a dream, the Prophet said we should do this, and just people just follow him and so forth. So we have to be very mindful about that. 3. There's authentic hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, لَمْ يَبْقَ مِنَ النُّبُوَّةِ إِلَّا الْمُبَشِّرَاتِ. That nothing remains from the prophethood إِلَّا الْمُبَشِّرَاتِ except al-mubashirat. The companions asked him, what is al-mubashirat? He said it's a good dream. A ru'ya salihah, a good dream that you will see or someone will see on your behalf. So he mentioned a ru'ya salihah, it's a good dream. Another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, a ru'ya salihah min Allah, that a good dream is from Allah and a bad dream is from shaitan. So in a nutshell, if it's a good dream, the person says, mashallah, we are not going to call the person a liar or call him or her names. Mashallah, jazakallah khair for the reminder and so forth. If it's not something which is authentic according to the Quran and the Sunnah, yes, we don't follow it and we don't take it. Now, I remember there was a young man in Ghana who told me one time that he had a dream. I said, okay. He said he saw the Prophet ﷺ in his dream. I said, okay, let's go on. And he said the Prophet ﷺ told him to do something. I asked him what? When he explained to me what he said he saw in the dream, I said, no, that is not correct. Because that was against the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's what I'm saying. So I said, I think you saw shaitan. That's what I told him. I said, you saw shaitan. Because you cannot, seriously, you cannot see the Prophet ﷺ and he will teach you to do something haram. That is not true. So we have to be very mindful when we talk about the dreams and so forth. Any question, brothers and sisters? Now, use the mic, please.
So how would you know it's the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ?
Jazakallah khair. How do you know? First, as I mentioned in the hadith, Man ra'ani fil manami faqad ra'ani. Whoever sees me in the dream, he has seen me. And the shaitan will not, impersonate to take the person or to, take the resemblance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, so that aside, someone will say that I have a dream. I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I didn't see his face. I see him on the side. I just see him walking and so forth. I'm not going to make any comment on that. I'm not going to call the person names. Now, what comes after that? If the person says that I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he or she did not add anything, I'll let it go. I make no comment. I'll say, mashallah. But if the person says something that the Prophet advised me, or he said I should do this, or not to do that, now we have to listen to what the person is saying. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Now we have to listen to what the person is saying, because there is no way, it is inconceivable, it doesn't make sense that the Prophet ﷺ will come in a dream and tell someone to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. I hope you understand. So that's the whole thing. But if the person didn't say anything, I just saw the Prophet. Did he say anything? No. I have no comment. I cannot make any justification whether it is real or is true or not, because he didn't say anything. So my whole comment will be if the person says something contrary to the Quran and the Sunnah. Nah. Allahu Alam. Any question or any follow-up on this or any clarification? Naam.
Even the time of Ali,
Naam.
who passed away, some
Jazakallah khair. So brothers sharing his input, he said when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, some people ask Ali that, you are close to the Prophet ﷺ, you are, the relative of the Prophet ﷺ, you are his nephew. Ask him, have you, heard anything from the Prophet ﷺ that we didn't know? Did the Prophet conceal anything? He hid something, some knowledge of the deen which people didn't know about? Said no. So the Prophet ﷺ, he completed the deen. He perfected the deen. He taught the ummah what Allah Azza wa Jalla sent him with. Meaning he conveyed the amana. He said, Ala qad ballagt, Allahumma fashhad. There is nothing private about the deen. Now, any question? Yes, please. Brothers asking about the protection of the Quran and the Hadith. Basically, as we know from the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun." Verily, we have sent down a dhikr, meaning the Quran, wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and we are going to protect it. And Allah Azza wa Jalla protected the Quran so much so that Allah Azza wa Jalla made it easy for people to memorize the Quran by heart. From the time of the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ memorized it by heart. The companions memorized it, some of them at least, and then it goes on and on till date. So this is in part, the way to preserve and to protect the Quran. And also Allah Azza wa Jalla made it very easy for people who try to change something in the Quran. Allah exposed them. People tried to change a letter, change a word, but it doesn't stick because Allah protected the Quran. Now, the Hadith doesn't have the same protection. There is no dalil from the Quran or the Hadith that Allah is going to protect the Hadith as Allah Azza wa Jalla promised to protect the Quran. And that's why you have different classification of the Hadith. That's why you have hadith da'if. Not only that, not only hadith da'if, which is weak, but because sometimes to explain the hadith da'if, sometimes you look at the sanad, the chain of transmission, and the scholars spend time and years to dig into the people who narrate the hadith, look into the chain of transmission and so forth. So much so, they will say this person is da'if, al-dhakira. He's weak in his memory, or he makes up stuff when he speaks, or, he doesn't remember what he said. So, mashallah, it is field of knowledge to scrutinize the people and to explain who says what, and what is the level of the person's integrity, his honesty, and whether the person has very strong memory and so forth. Now, but you have hadith mawdu'. Hadith mawdu' is fabricated hadith. It happened. People make up hadith, which is not even da'if. No, it's mawdu'. They lie. They just make up. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, من كذب عليه متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. من كذب علي متعمدا. Whoever tells lie about me, you say something that the Prophet ﷺ said, متعمدا, intentionally, for whatever reason. You make up the hadith, you said the Prophet said it, متعمدا, you know that you lie. فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. The person should get his seat ready in the fire, in the hellfire. والعياذ بالله. So you have different classification of hadith. But wallahi alhamdu wal minna, we have scholars who spend time in studying of the hadith, like Shaykh al-Albani and other scholars of the hadith. They spend their entire life searching and authenticating the hadith and so forth. So this is, but Allah Azza wa Jalla promised to protect the Quran. Now, faddal.
So if a person is committing shirk out of ignorance, is he still held responsible for this?
First of all, it is a duty upon us to ask if we don't know. That's the first step. Because my take on this question is that someone is committing shirk without knowing. So, but the first step he should ask before acting on, before doing it, if it's in the ibadah and so forth, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So one will not get a free pass for his or for her ignorance. Oh, I'm just committing shirk because I didn't know. Why didn't you ask? Why didn't you make some research? Why did you ask the scholars? This is very serious. Now, the Prophet ﷺ says in his dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika shay'an wa ana a'lam wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. He makes dua, and it's authentic, that I seek refuge in you, seek refuge to Allah Azza wa Jal, for committing any shirk knowingly and intentionally. He asks Allah Azza wa Jalla to forgive him, Allah Azza wa Jalla to save him and keep him, to protect him. Keep him away from committing shirk knowingly. Wa astaghfiruk. And I ask for your forgiveness if I happen to do anything or fall in any act of shirk unknowingly. So this answers part of the question, that it is a good dua for us to say so that Allah will forgive us if, subhanallah, by mistake, unknowingly, and jahl, out of ignorance, we say something, we do something, and it happens to be part of shirk. Now,
so how about, for example, there are specific groups of Muslims where they have clear-cut kufr. For example, they might believe in another prophet, and so on and so forth. Would the label of kufr only lie to the knowledgeable ones, or even to the laymen and to the family members? And so
Wallahi, jazakallah khair. I mean, it is very serious, and I will say this. Someone who doesn't have knowledge, and he goes to seek knowledge, not knowing his source of knowledge is distorted. His source of knowledge is deviated. His source of knowledge has to do with shirk and bid'ah. And the lay person, the layman, he doesn't know better. He or she thinks that, you know what? I'm attending these lectures, this halaqah, I'm learning this book, I'm learning this deen, so that I purify myself and worship Allah Azza wa Jalla ala ilmin wa ala basira, upon clear knowledge and, have good insight. But subhanallah, the person is committing shirk. Now, the person will be forgiven for his jahl, for his ignorance, for her ignorance. And the fact that the person made effort to learn and to strive and to know the right. But like I'm saying, the person didn't know better. But the source of the knowledge, where the person is seeking the knowledge, is not good source. It's not the good knowledge. And the person, deals with the shirk without knowing. Allah will forgive such a person because the person is ignorant. Now, the one at the top, meaning the leader, meaning you call him sheikh, you call him imam, you call him mullah, you call him wali, call him whatever. If they are doing this knowingly, they will bear the sins for themselves and the sins of those they mislead. If they are doing that, misleading people and misleading them into shirk and so forth, they will bear their own sins, and they will also bear the sins of the people they mislead. And then the layman will have no sin because they tried, they made effort, but they didn't know better. Wallahu a'lam. Now, تفضل يا أخي. Yes. Jazakallah khair. The brother is saying that now the knowledge is out there. The ilm is there, it's abundant, it's plenty, it's flourishing. So can we still say that there are people who are laymen without knowledge? Absolutely yes. Trust me, brother. Even in this age of ilm and technology, you have masha'Allah ilm, but yet still, here's the problem. Someone will take the ayah from the Quran, okay? He reads the ayah, and we look up to him as a person of knowledge. He explains the ayah in the wrong context. So even though the ilm is there, but still people need more explanation. And I keep saying this with all due respect. Some people will take the Quran and they will read the translation, meaning English translation, and they think that they understand. With all due respect. They think, oh, I read this tafsir, I understand. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because the English translation and other translation does not really nails, it doesn't nail it down. It doesn't give you the whole understanding. It just gives you some meaning. That's why we need the ilm. Sometimes, when you sit with the alim, with the sheikh, he will give you the meaning in details, give you asbabun nuzul, reasons for revelation, and give you, and then you have more time for interaction. Come in and follow up and clarify. All this adds to the weight of the knowledge. But if you just take the English translation and read, some of this translation needs explanation. So you have a translation and interpretation. But trust me, sometimes you need more explanation. So I'm saying this to say that yes, the ilm is there. You can take hadith and read the book of the hadith in any language, but you're still missing the detail and the fine teaching of the hadith. And that's why you have the hadith, and then ma yustafadu min al-hadith. What are the lessons from the hadith? You have some bayan from the hadith. Is there any correlation between this hadith and different ahadith? You read this ayah, and this ayah in the Quran, which we read, and nata'abbadu bihi, we have the reward for the ibadah of reciting this hadith or this ayah in the Quran. But we have a nasikh wal mansukh. Some ayat are abrogated. You know, there are some ayat that was revealed after that, it abrogated the meaning of this ayah. Even though it's there, we read it, we make salat with it and so forth. How do you know? Someone with ilm. So yes, the fact that we have ilm, mashallah, is not enough. And we shouldn't take this lightly, that, oh, we have knowledge, we have ilm. It's okay, I can just take the English translation of the hadith or the Quran. We need the scholars. Now, this leads me to make this point that we already made before. And one of the sisters asked, you need to know who you learn from. Seriously. I mean, we have, respect for all the scholars who spend time in learning. But trust me, you have someone who will tell you, قال الله, قال رسول الله. Allah said, and the Rasul said. Okay? That is the point of reference. But you have some scholars also. Back in the days and up till date, they will say Allah said, the messengers, and then they start to give you some differences of opinion, giving some awliya, some of the shuyukh, and they take you into the ditch. Seriously. But if you don't have the ilm, you don't know. So you follow them. And that is serious. Now, any question, brothers, sisters? Fadal akhi.
So if you meet a new Muslim, what is the asal of a Muslim? Is it that he's upright, or is it that he's like ignorant?
Can you get the mic up a little?
So when you see a new Muslim for the first time, any Muslim in the masjid or otherwhere, what is his asal? Do you assume that he's upright and knowledgeable, or do you assume that he's ignorant?
Wallah jazakallah khair. I mean, first, as we know from the definition of al-Muslim, when the Prophet was asked about Islam, أن تشهد لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. So this, of course, explains the 5 pillars, right? When the person says أشهد لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله, the person establishes salah or her salah. The person is, if he has wealth, giving zakah, the person fasting, the person performing hajj, if he or she could afford it and so forth, the person is a Muslim. And that's why you go up. From being a Muslim, you become a mu'min, because that's a higher level. Even though sometimes, the Islam and the Iman, they explain each other sometimes. Al-Iman an tu'mina billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wa tu'mina bil qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi. So it gives you more details about the understanding of faith and so forth. So, but back to your question, Anyone who says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, and he makes the salah and so forth, the person is a Muslim. Okay. Even the person sometimes, he never perform Hajj. He's still a Muslim. The person never gives zakah. Still a Muslim. Why? We're going to talk from the hadith. We're going to learn from the hadith. When Ayman came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Rasulullah, أرأيت إذا صليت المكتوبات وصمت رمضان وأحللت الحلال وحرمت الحرام ولم أزد على ذلك شيء أدخل الجنة? Straightforward question. He said, Oh Allah's Messenger, أرأيت أي أخبرني, please tell me about this. إذا صليت المكتوبات أي المفروضات, if I perform the 5 obligatory salah, ظهر, عصر, maghrib, isha, fajr, إذا صليت المكتوبات وصمت رمضان, and I observe the fasting of the month of Ramadan, وأحللت الحلال, I keep halal halal, وحرمت الحرام, I keep away from the haram, I recognize the haram is haram. In the hadith, the person says, وَلَمْ أَزِدَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ شَيْءٍ, I didn't do anything further. So he mentioned about the salah, he mentioned about the fasting, and then keeping the perimeters, the boundaries of halal and haram. He said, وَلَمْ أَزِدَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ شَيْءٍ, I didn't do anything further. In other words, he didn't give zakah. So the Prophet ﷺ knew that this person has no wealth. So there is no zakat on him. He has no means to perform Hajj. You understand? Because Allah said, لَمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Here's the bottom line. He says, وَلَمْ أَزِدْ عَلَى ذَلِكَ الشَّيْء, I didn't do anything further. أَأَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةِ, am I going to enter Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ gave short and sweet answer. Naam. Yes, you enter Jannah. So, why he didn't perform Hajj? He didn't give zakah, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe he doesn't have means for Hajj. Maybe he doesn't have money to give zakah. So back to the question, anyone who says, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he performs salah, or she performs salah, and so forth. The person is a Muslim. Yeah. Yeah, that's the answer. Oh, that wasn't the question? Oh, sorry.
Is the asal of a Muslim, is it adallah? I mean, he's upright and he's knowledgeable, maybe like...
Oh, jazakallah khair. So he's saying, is the person upright and the person is knowledgeable? The question, of course, no. No. Look, the person is like you have a baby. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have a baby. You spoon feed him or her. Gradual process. So when someone becomes a Muslim, his journey is just starting. No. Remember the ayah, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. When the Arab Bedouins came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, آمنا, we believe. The Prophet ﷺ said, yo, take it easy. You have not attained faith yet. Meaning you're not there. You have not acquired the knowledge yet. You're not upright yet. وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا, but say that we accepted Islam. So the person is upright in the sense that he or she pronounced the declaration of faith, of course. So Islam is better than the kufr. In that context, the person is upright, but has the person acquired the knowledge? No. The person will take it, from there and learn.
Sorry, I wasn't clear on my question. I meant a person who is new to you.
Yes.
Meaning not he just accepted Islam, but meaning you're in the masjid and he has a beard, he's, he looks like he's following the sunnah, and he comes, he wants to give you nasiha. Do you accept the knowledge he gives you just like that and assume that he is knowledgeable, upright, or do you assume that, maybe he doesn't know?
Barakallah fik. I'm sorry it took us a while to go around the question, but it's good. Well, first of all, in general, al-hukmu bil-zahir. Again, in general, al-hukmu bil-zahir. The judgment is that with that which is apparent. So if someone walks into the masjid or a place of gathering and he shares something or he's giving us nasiha, advising us or sharing some knowledge, should I take the knowledge from him? Should I assume the person has knowledge? Well, first of all, I don't know his background. I don't know his track record, whether he has ilm, whether he learned and so forth. But what he says, if it's sound and it's good and it's authentic, yes, I take it. regardless. Because I'll tell you what, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'll tell you what, I happen to be in places, I'm not saying I to praise myself, no, I'm just giving an example. I happen to be in places where someone is speaking. He is not a person with knowledge, but we don't know each other. I sit down in the gathering, I listen. He might say something, mashallah, good, and then you take it. So there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Who has more right and entitlement to speak without a doubt? A person with ilm, a person with knowledge. But it doesn't mean that someone who has little knowledge cannot speak or share the knowledge he heard from his shaykh or from a teacher. It's nothing wrong with that. I don't know whether I'm explaining the point. Yeah, so al-hukm bil-zahir. You know, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. What he says, if it's sound, if it's good, if it's correct, I'll take it. He doesn't have to be, quote unquote, a sheikh. But what he said is sound. What he said is right. He said it's correct. Whether it's from the hadith or from the sunnah or any statement, it's a good one, mashallah. We take it and we learn from each other. We learn from each other. But maybe from there, you can talk to him on the side just to get to know the person a little bit. Yeah. And then maybe if it's something that you can connect, the person has more knowledge, alhamdulillah, we learn more from him. If not, then we just share the knowledge that we have, you know, from each other. Now, any question? Yes.
So you talked about like how the Islam.
I'm sorry?
Like, you talked about like the Islam and like the pillars of Islam. So like, what if you like say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, but you don't like do the salah,
Okay.
for example? Like, are you still Muslim?
Jazakallah khair. You heard the question, Bryce, saying that you have someone who says ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, but the person is not making salah. First, when someone reverted to Islam, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to work with the person, with him or with her, to educate the person and so forth. It's very important, because I assume that the person might not have the knowledge how to make wudu, how to pray, so it's a process. You understand? So, and the person has to make some initiative, have some commitment to learn. It's very important. Now, long story short, if the person knows about wudu and the salat and all of that, but he chooses or she chooses not to pray constantly, he's not a Muslim. She's not a Muslim. Islam is not a slogan. Islam is not just for someone to say, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, and the person does not act upon it. He doesn't comply with the teaching of Islam. He doesn't pray or she doesn't pray, and you know, no, the person will not be qualified to be a Muslim. العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة فمن تركها فقد كفر. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned clearly in the hadith, من تركها, anyone who abandons the salah, who does not perform the prayer, فقد كفر, he or she is a kafir. Now, talk about a youth. You know, you have youngsters, young children who pray on and off. Their parents are Muslims. The children themselves, when you have a conversation with them, they say, I'm a Muslim. But do you pray every day? Nah. On and off. I'm a Muslim. I pray Fajr, I pray Dhuhr. But when I went to the college, I'm sorry, I didn't pray, Asr and so forth. So you have them on and off and so forth. Are they kuffar? No, they're not kuffar. They're not kuffar. But that's what I'm saying. It's a responsibility on the guardians and the parents to remind them and emphasize on them the importance of salah and so forth. But someone who does not pray at all is a kafir. Period. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, question? Naam, akhi. Naam. Yes. Yes, kafir. Yeah, anyone who does not pray at all, he's not a Muslim. He can have any Muslim name. He or she can have any Muslim name. But what I'm saying is that if the person does not pray at all, he's not a Muslim. I heard one time a sister asked, a question regarding her own husband. She said her husband doesn't pray. Well, why was she asking the question? Because he died. Really, he died. So she called. She was asking what to do with the husband. He said, Muslim? She said, well, he has a Muslim name, but he doesn't pray. Okay, when you say he doesn't pray, what do you mean? See what I'm saying? It's very important to follow up. When you say he doesn't pray, you mean he doesn't go to the masjid every day? No, I don't mean that. Does he go to masjid sometimes? No. He goes Jumu'ah to Jumu'ah, Friday to Friday? No. Does he pray in the house? No. He prays on and off? No, he doesn't pray at all. He's not a Muslim. Period. He's not a Muslim. But like what I'm trying to explain is that someone is praying, but subhanallah, he's weak in his iman, he's weak in his faith, he's on and off. He prays sometimes he doesn't pray, or she prays on and off. The person is a Muslim. He's a bad Muslim. He's a rat. I'm using the correction, someone is a rat, it's a bad one. So the person is not a good Muslim, because a good Muslim has to observe the salat and so forth. So the person, we make dua for him. When the person dies, we wash him, we shroud him, we make janazah prayer on him, we bury him in the Muslim cemetery and make dua for him. In the sunnah, the Prophet makes dua, Allahumma in kana muhsinan fazid fi ihsanihi. If the person is good, Allah add in his goodness, add in his reward, expand and elevate him. Expand his grave, elevate his status. فَزِدْ فِي إِحْسَانِهِمْ. Add in his reward. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُسِيئًا. If the person is sinful, meaning the person is short in his salah, in his sadaqah, or zakah, or any of the good deed, or committing sins in general. إِنْ كَانَ مُسِيئًا فَتَجَاوَزْ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِ. Allah forgive his sins. So subhanallah, nataraham, we seek mercy for two kinds or two types of people, the good ones and the bad ones. But again, back to the point, the person who doesn't make salah at all, he is not a Muslim. Now, yes. Jazakallah khair for the follow-up again. So the brother is asking, so in this context, when she lives with this man who is not practicing his deen, if the person, as I mentioned, constantly is not praying, he is not a Muslim, and she has to stay away from him. In other words, that marriage has to be annulled. That marriage has to be, Imam has to, divorce her from him, because he's not a Muslim. It is haram for a Muslim sister to marry and live with a non-Muslim. And he is not a Muslim. He is a non-Muslim. Now.
So would him or her be buried in the Muslim cemetery or the non-Muslim cemetery?
Oh, the one I said he's not a Muslim? Non-Muslim. Because he's not a Muslim. So we will not do the washing. We're not going to wash his body. We're not going to do janazah prayer for him. No. If we can contract with any people, any group, hey, we have someone died in our backyard, okay? Make a contract. Pay them whatever they need. They can take him in a coffin. And he's not a Muslim. So the requirements for the Muslim in terms of the washing and the janazah prayer and so forth and the burial, maqbarat al-Muslimin, the Muslim cemetery, it doesn't apply to him. No, nothing. Just get some people, take him away. Now, if there is no one to take care of him, no one, but let's say his children, they are very good Muslims, but they don't have anyone else who will take care of him, what should they? It's their duty to take him, meaning get rid of him without the ghusl, without the janazah prayer, but they have to take him out because they cannot leave him in the house. Do you understand? Do you understand? Yes. Now,
So what if you have, for example, a family member who does not pray, and
Nah.
he dies in that state, and then the rest of the family members, they want to perform the janazah. So what should you do in that case?
Oh, Jazakallah khair. Well, the question is clear. It's haram. That will be against the deen. You cannot make the ghusl and the janazah prayer all the way, burial in the Muslim cemetery for someone who is a non-Muslim. So it's not about favoritism, because, the family, sometimes they just want to cover his behind. They don't want people to know that, oh, their father, he didn't used to pray, so he's a kafir. So they just want to, cover him. It is haram to do that. It is haram for them to pray on him, period. They just have to, like I said, if it's necessary for them to take care of him because no one else will, then they have to do what they have to do to just take him without any ghusl, without any janazah prayer for him, because he is not a Muslim. He died as a kafir.
Would you still bury him, or would you cremate, or it doesn't matter?
Not supposed to get rid of him. Now, what is available to bury him, because they have to get rid of him. They cannot leave him home. Now, cremation is different form of punishment according to the deen. So according to the Sharia, we do not cremate a Muslim when he dies. That is not the way of the Sunnah. Yeah, he's a kafir, but we just bury him. Do you understand? Now, we don't torture him through cremation and so forth. Cremation is now, Muslims don't cremate their deceased. I know he's not a Muslim, yes, but we bury him because it becomes a burden upon us if there is no one else to bury him. Should we cremate him? No, but to bury him. Now, yes, please. Jazakallah khair. I appreciate this question. Brother is saying, should Imam ask before attending the janazah or leading the janazah when someone deceased? It's just, mashallah, one of the good questions, and all questions are good. Well, first of all, we assume that Muslims are truthful. Listen to this. We assume that Muslims are truthful. We assume that Muslims are honest. We assume that Muslims are transparent, because we have to. We're supposed to be. So when I come to the masjid and I say that my father died, the first instinct is that it's a Muslim. That's the first instinct. Now, but I have to make this clear to the community. If he is contrary to what people think, in other words, if he is not a Muslim, but people might think he is because people see me in the community, I have to come forward and come clean and say my father died, or my brother, or my daughter, because it happens. In some communities or some families, they have mixed, some Muslims and some non-Muslims. So the one who is a Muslim has to be, honest between him and Allah Azza wa Jal, and say that the deceased is my mom or my brother or my sister, but it's not a Muslim. If he concealed that, if he did not come clean, he will take the burden of the sin. Do you understand? But Imam can come forward and say, how is the deceased? Is there any debt on him? In a nice way, because it's very sensitive. It's like, oh, so you question my father's iman or my father's faith and so forth. So I will say, with a Muslim family, we assume that they're all Muslims, except if there is, exception to the rule, or someone who is not, following the path of the deen. Now, a non-Muslim family, we assume that they are non-Muslims, unless, and this happened, a non-Muslim will come and say, someone deceased, my son died. The parent might be non-Muslims, but say, our son is a Muslim. He comes to the masjid. So, mashallah, that's what I'm saying. They come clean and say that, we have a death in the family, we're not Muslims. But he or she is a Muslim, so we know and take care of him. Now, so Imam has a duty to make sure that he follow up with the family and so forth, see what he can do to help, and also what the community can do to help. So in part of it, so mashallah, if he has debt to pay, or, like you said, making salah, or not making salah. Yes. Yes, please.
If a father dies, who is given responsibility for the janazah and the most?
Barakallah fi. Beautiful question. When the father dies, the one who has right to the janazah from the washing and leading the prayer is the immediate family. In other words, let's say he has a son, a Muslim, of course. We don't expect non-Muslim son to lead. A Muslim son, then he will organize, the family to take care of the washing and so forth. The son has the right to lead the janazah prayer. Or if the father himself, during his lifetime, he appointed someone, that becomes a wasiyah. He already appointed that when I die, let the imam lead the prayer. Then that's a wasiyah from the father. It has to be honored. You understand? But if there is no any wasiyah like that, now the relative has the right to lead. Now, if like, let's say, a son, his father will lead. Or maybe the father will give the right to the imam or delegate someone to lead. So it comes from the family and spread out, from inside out. Now,
as an individual, are you familiar of any cases where a member of the family stopped praying and died upon that, and they did not bury him with the Muslims?
say that again?
Are you familiar of any cases in real life where a person has stopped praying and then his family did not give him a janazah?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Do you know of them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't the entire family, extended family, everyone come up and go crazy?
Oh, absolutely. Because, like I'm saying, this is amana. Trust me. And you have in a family, especially sometimes when you have a family, it's all Muslims, we don't see these extreme cases, but it happens. In places like United States, in the West, you will have in one family some Muslims and some non-Muslims. And so much so you will have someone even born and raised a Muslim, because كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. Every person is born as a Muslim. But later on you see that the person is not doing the salah. Yeah, it happened. And the whole family will say that, he's our son, he's our daughter, but he is not praying. They don't perform janazah prayer on him.
What if a teenage boy in a Muslim family was not brought up in an environment where he's taught to pray, and he dies in that state where he's never prayed before, but he has the Muslim title?
When the person dies before the sin al-bulugh, and we have inshallah just a minute or two.
I mean 16, 17 years old.
When the person attained the age of maturity, then there is a decree or a record upon him in terms of writing the good and the bad, so meaning salah becomes obligatory upon him. Now, make long story short, whether it's negligence from the family, the environment, whatever, is he a Muslim? That's the whole question. Is he a Muslim? He performs his salah and so forth. We're not talking about, his background, his lineage, Muslim family. If he abandons the salah, he does not pray at all, and he dies to kafir. From the time he attained the sin al-bulugh. If he is underage, that's why I didn't want to use the term, because underage in the Western context, it means that he has to attain certain age. No, in Islam, it's not. When the person attains the puberty, that's all. So if the person abandons the salah, period, he's not praying at all. He's not a Muslim. But if the person is just young, and remember what I mentioned, the person is limping, and the person is wrestling with himself, praying sometimes, not praying sometimes, we make salat for him. Okay? And someone doing a sin al-bulugh is just young, then the person has not attained the age of puberty. Okay? We take this last question, or last two, because you are my friends, and we end with that. Yes. Last two questions.
So how would you know whether or not someone prayed in their lifetime? So what if there was a family member that I haven't seen them prayed, but it's possible that they still pray?
Oh, okay. Well, in general, as a Muslim, we assume Muslims to pray. Now, in the family, maybe I don't see him because I don't live with him, but someone else knows him and lives with him and so forth. So we can always find out how someone is doing. Not because the person is dead, no, before even the person is dead. You understand? He or she hangs out with non-Muslims before his death. We know the person doesn't pray. Trust me. If the person prays, we know. We hear from one source or the other. So it's not just one time or one day or 1 week thing. You know what I'm saying? So in general, we assume him to perform his salah until we have information without any reasonable doubt. So we just don't make a judgment just to cut someone off, but we have sound and from a reliable source that the person abandons his salah. Wallahu a'lam.
So if he was like an isolated person and no one knew him except that he was a Muslim,
We assume him to be a Muslim because we know him to be a Muslim until we have a proof or evidence that he stopped praying. So if we don't have anything, the judgment is that we know him to be a Muslim. So we'll wash him, pray janazah for him, and bury him. Here is the bottom line. The salah of the janazah will not avail him anyway if he's a kafir. You know what I'm saying? It's not that we're trying to bribe the angels or bribe Allah Azza wa Jalla. No. If he is not a person who establishes the salah, but we assume he does, the salah will not avail him. Burying him in a Muslim cemetery will not help him anyway.
So if you bury him in the Muslim cemetery and then you find out he was a kafir, so do you take him out?
Well, that's another question. Would you exhume someone who is buried in a Muslim cemetery? Now, if someone is buried in a Muslim cemetery by mistake, assuming Muslims thought that he was a Muslim, he's a kafir, and then they knew, should they move him out? It's yes. Absolutely yes. Because you don't bury non-Muslim in a Muslim cemetery. So should we exhume, take him out, and bury him in a different place with the kuffar? The answer is yes. Okay, we'll take this last one. Give him the mic, please.
If a Muslim person dies while praying, do they get a free ticket to Jannah?
So you repeat the question. Let me hear you clearly.
If a non-Muslim's first time praying and he dies while praying,
a non-Muslim.
Does he get a full ticket to Jannah?
You said he's a non-Muslim.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a Muslim. And he's praying. And he died? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? So anyone who reverted to Islam, his past is gone, period. So maybe he might be 60 years, 70 years, okay? Al-Islam, meaning reverting to Islam, will erase all what has transpired. I mentioned a man in Texas who became a Muslim after the age of 70 years. After age of 70 years. Was a Caucasian. So when he came to take Shahada, some folks in the community, they were like, no, man, he's too white to be Muslim. No, seriously, he's too white to be Muslim. Maybe he's a spy. I said, come on, man, give him a break. Give him Shahada. He took Shahada. In less than 4 weeks, he died. Less than 4 weeks. So to answer your question, it's time for Adhan, is that when someone becomes Muslim, his past is gone. And he opens a new page, and Allah Azza wa Jalla will reward him, even if he just prays one day. Even if he did, as soon as he says, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, he's a Muslim. Even if he dies before the salah, Allah will grant him Jannah. May Allah grant all of us Jannah. To be continued. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله